Welcome to MasterHypnosisTraining.com. My name is Steve Roehm, and I'm with my mentor and friend, Igor Ledochowski.
Hello, everyone.
And we just wanted to talk a little bit about the conversational hypnosis, professional hypnotherapy training, and tell you a bit about what the training is, and talk about some of the differences in what this is compared to traditional trainings and some of the trainings that you and I have both been through that
Yes.
have been less than exciting.
Yes, there are a number.
Let's start back. You started the conversational hypnosis protocol several years ago,
Right.
and you want to tell a little bit about the background and where it all came from.
Okay, so really the idea of conversational hypnosis started a long time ago now. I qualified as a hypnotist first, of course. I was a lawyer. And when I was leaving the law firm with my kind of hypnosis background, initially I thought, I was just going to open up hypnotherapy practice, which of course I did.
Right.
But after a little while, I soon realized I kind of missed working with the kind of people I was working at a law firm. I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I did like the mindset, the people, and so on. So I got into executive coaching. Now, the problem with executive coaching is, at the time I was around 27 years old, so the average executive that I was working with was in his 50s, so pretty much twice my age. And they have a vast amount of business experience. I mean, some of them are running whole country sections for international corporates and so on. So in terms of business experience, I have nothing to offer them, zero. I mean, it would be ridiculous for me to even try. So the only thing I had to offer was hypnosis, because I could help them reach inside themselves, get over whatever obstacles they had, so they could solve their own problems by dissolving those obstacles. But I had a dilemma. The dilemma was that the only thing I had to offer was hypnosis, and the only thing I couldn't use was hypnosis, because there's no Fortune 500 CEO who's going to say, okay, now dangle the pocket watch and go sleepy, solve your problems. They can't sell that at a board meeting.
There had to be a better way, huh?
So that's really when the idea of really getting conversation hypnosis started up. I was inspired, of course, by Milton Erickson. And I thought, well, what if I take my hypnosis experiences and adapt what I've been learning from the Ericksonian approach and make it truly conversational, truly covert, so I could really just have a chat with someone. And in the course of the chat, identify wherever they're being blocked, remove those blocks, allow creativity to reemerge, and basically they're solving their own problems. So that was really the foundation of conversational hypnosis. Then some years later, actually quite a few years later, when we were, we started a publishing company and all that sort of stuff, we wanted to do a seminar, and I really wanted to go back to my roots and teach therapeutic stuff again, because I really enjoy that. That's really where my heart is at. So of course our very first seminar was going to be conversational hypnotherapy, which is based on the same ideas. And I just basically pulled together all my experiences and put it together in a simple to learn kind of package.
That's what I love about it.
I mean, if at the end of the day you don't know how to use it, exactly. You've pretty much wasted your time. I know this because, like yourself, I've been to many seminars. I remember I took 1 year-long seminar in the UK. Content-wise, was excellent. I mean, I learned a lot about different styles of hypnosis, different, key figures in the history of hypnosis and the different approaches they had, what they added to the game. I learned a lot about different therapeutic techniques, from flooding and mass practice to different ways of working with phobias and working with different conditions, skin conditions, cancer, all that kind of stuff. The problem is, at the end of it, I couldn't do any of it.
I've had trainings like that myself. Yeah.
So for the intellectual know-how, fantastic, not a fault. For the actual practical skill and ability, pretty useless.
Right.
And that I thought was very bad. I think hypnotherapists, first and foremost, ought to be skilled and competent individuals. Learned by all means, but skilled and competent first and foremost. Being learned, I think, is the next part. That's something you can do by reading a book. And there's many really good books actually out there
libraries of them.
Libraries of books on different ideas, approaches, techniques, therapeutic approaches, and so on. So all that kind of intellectual knowledge is easy to pick up. What is difficult to pick up is the actual skills, the competency. So when you leave and the client sits there with a problem, your mind automatically switches to, well, lucky that you're here, right? As opposed to, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Let's keep talking, just hope for the best.
Which script do I read?
Yeah, exactly. So really that's the heart of what conversation hypnosis was all about.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what really drew me into it, because I discovered your work back in 2008.
Yep.
Or maybe
Right
a little before.
Actually,
because-
2007, it would be
Yeah.
a tail end of that, yeah.
Yeah, that was in Palm Springs,
Yep.
which was a great training, and I'm still actually affected by that training, and I could see it in my work in my office as
Right.
well. But I was drawn into it because of it's simple,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so sophisticated. It's like having a palette of primary colors
Yes.
that you can turn into anything.
So, I mean, thank you for recognizing that. My whole philosophy when it comes to, especially the conversational therapy program, there's a phenomenon called an emergent phenomenon, which is basically if you were to write a computer program with some simple rules, like 3 rules,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way that they interact with each other will change the next round, and then they interact with each other again, change the next round, and so on. And by the time you've gone through a couple of rounds, you have created a very complex mechanism. So I'll give you an example. I believe this is back in the 70s or so. Researchers were still confused as to how birds knew how to flock. When they kind of dive and weave and do all these wonderful patterns. No one really knew how they did it. So a mathematician, a computer programmer, the 70s of course was a big era for that sort of stuff.
Big computers.
Yeah, big computers. So he came up with the idea of an emergent phenomenon where you have simple rules that compound over time to create complex behaviors. And I can't remember what the actual rules were, but it was something along the lines of, if the bird ahead of you flies, follow it. If the bird to your left banks, bank along with it. And it's 2 or 3, 4 rules like that, right? Very simple ones. And then he constructed like a virtual reality little plaza or something, set up his birds, put these rules in action, and just watched. He had no idea what would happen. He didn't have a predefined, first this bird does this, then this bird does that.
Sure.
No rules. He literally just set the environment, set the rules, and then just let it go. And the machine started having little weird things happening at first, and suddenly the birds started creating flocking-like behavior. The same kind of complex stuff you see weaving in and out of pillars, all that sort of stuff, was happening automatically. And really, the way I look at hypnosis is it's an emergent phenomenon. You can't have a script because the script is rigid.
Right.
And as soon as you change, you no longer fit the script. You have to throw that script away, get another script that fits what's just happened.
Sure.
So you really have to have a library of scripts with a full working knowledge of them so you can leave between them
Right.
and figure out which one you're going to use, which is a very complex thing to do. What I like to do instead, and this is what the backbone to the conversational therapy program is give people some simple rules which will compound over time, just like those birds, and become very sophisticated, very complex over time. So
Right.
it really gets to deal with the complexities of a human being.
It changes as they happen.
Exactly. So it matches them at every step of the way.
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful model, and that's
you.
why I've followed along with it. I feel very honored to actually be a part of this anyway.
Thank you.
But it's so different than going through a traditional training.
Yes.
It's so much more fun, honestly.
Yes. Well,
I think that's the beauty of going through the training, is the fun and that you can have with it. And
I like to call it edutainment.
edutainment, it is. It really is.
As opposed to what people think of education, because I don't think education currently in the way that most people understand it can be called education.
Right.
The root of the word education comes from Latin educo, meaning to draw out of someone else, to lead out of someone, which means the presumption is you already have it. I just have to help guide you to find what you already know, right? And I think it's a great presumption. I think the Romans and the Greeks were very smart about that. I think we've lost that. Education's become a factory process where we shove facts into someone's head and see if they can replicate it in an exam. And it's not even like the exam even replicates the conditions in which you need to use it, right? It's just a question of how much can you memorize. And I think it's a terrible thing, because a lot of people have issues with quote-unquote learning, not realizing that they've learned to have those issues. It's a testament to people's capacity to learn, that they learn despite our educational system rather than because of it. So when I started teaching, I right from the start didn't want to teach according to the accepted current model. because it doesn't work so well. And I figured, and it's something that really struck me. I told you about the year-long hypnosis school, which had lots of good content, but not such good practices. It really surprised me with everything that we're talking about, the power of the mind, and accelerated learning, and all that sort of stuff. Why on earth weren't they using the stuff they were teaching you to teach it to you?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they using hypnosis to teach hypnosis? I never understood that. And that's really what I set out to do, which means it's, of course, going to be fun, which means at times it's going to be confusing.
Right.
But ultimately, it all comes together in a very clear, concise, simple idea, which you can grasp consciously and perform consciously, but has this wealth of other material underneath for the unconscious mind to run with. So that's really the balance point I've tried to strike with it.
Yeah, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's amazing the way you've put this together. And not just this, but the other trainings that I've been through with you as well.
Thank you very much.
It's just the way that you have to boil things down to the parts that really matter.
Right.
And then we can take those parts and we can work with them.
Exactly, because then you have a working knowledge, and then you can layer anything you want on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you have a core skill set that you can trust, then you can improve it ad infinitum. But if your core skill set is flawed, weak, or somehow you can't have trust in it, then anything you layer on top of that is based on this weak foundation, and it's all subject to crumbling, which is really not an ideal place to be in.
Especially not in an office when you're working.
No, exactly. Someone's trusted you with their most intimate problems, and respected you enough to pay you probably a fair amount of money for that.
Right.
Then, it's professional ethics demand that you can do something with it,
Right.
right? Or refer them on, in which case they shouldn't be sitting in your office.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's beautiful the way this is put together because you can learn a handful of skills,
Mm-hmm.
and you can even take those skills and you can work with them and master them. It
Yep.
becomes, and it's really it's a lifelong learning, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Because we spent time in Dublin going
Yeah.
over some information that I learned 4 years ago, and really still getting so much deeper into it. But
Yeah.
it's simple when you first get into it.
It's totally scalable. So you
It
can
really
start off
is.
so you can get a nice solid foundation,
Right.
and realize that every element of that foundation has probably infinite depth that you can drill down into.
I'm sure of that. Yeah.
And I think that's a very charming way to look at things, because there's never boredom,
Right.
because there's always somewhere to go with it.
Exactly.
But you're never quite overloaded, because you can always go back to something simple that you still know works.
Well, I just want to kind of wrap things up because
Sure.
I know we have a busy day ahead of us. But
We do.
is there anything else you'd like to say to somebody who has never been through or even seen anything about your work and what we're doing as far as the conversational hypnosis?
Really, the main thing I would say is there's many hypnosis schools out there. There are some very good ones. Unfortunately, there's a lot of very bad ones.
More than not.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I'm not going to mention any names of that because that's not really fair. But if you're going to look into hypnosis, really do your research, have a look at the instructors and what they do and so on. I've known you for a number of years now, as you know, and Steve is an excellent trainer who really has his stuff down. And if you really want to understand conversational hypnosis, well, I can't recommend Steve highly enough. Really try it out. Seriously, once you've had one day just to taste it and get a sense of what it's like, then I think you'll have something to really understand it by and compare it to what else is out there. And at that point, really, I think the whole thing sells itself. Once you've had an experience of it and you can compare it to what else is on offer, then you know what it is. And, well, you'll easily make a choice that's going to be right for you.
Yeah. Igor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for stopping by MasterHypnosisTraining.com.
Thank you very much.